ho, ho, Kerry. How are you today? It's good to see you here.
Happy Halloween, Santa. I'm a child of the corn, and I had a cornfield design I was going to put behind me, but it ruins my headband. It like does that green screen thing and cancels it out. But aw shucks, I'm a corn child.
That is a delightful costume and so well thought out. How wonderful. And what happy Halloween to you, Kerry. There's my pop. I'm glad to see him. Good morning, Dad. Good to see you. Kerry, we have an interesting topic. You put this topic together. Let's talk about it.
So there is times that people think that maybe it's too late to do the thing that they always wanted to do. Maybe because it seems like a drastic change, maybe because it seems expensive. But how old is actually too old to kind of blow everything up and start over again? Because at a certain age, people expect you to be stable, right? Like you're a thing, you've always been that thing, you're supposed to stay that thing. But for what reason? So today we're talking about the myth of too late and why reinvention as you get older might actually be easier and not harder.
Well, being as someone who is age 55 and still trying to figure out who I want to be when I grow up and still thinking like in my brain, like, I still have a chance to do many other things. I think there's, especially if it's cerebral pursuits, I think there's so many. I think it might be a little harder if you're going to do something like crazy physical active. Like, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want to figure out how to be a roofer as my next act or something. So I wonder if maybe that's a place to start. And I know you have a whole lot of thoughts and things to look at, but I think, oh, I never even saw you wrote all this down. There's a lot to learn here. So what I was going to say was that I think that maybe there's different pursuits that matter a lot. Hey, Chloe, happy Halloween to you. I think there's different pursuits where we can or can't go into it. What do you think?
Certain things. Okay, so if you wanted to enlist in the military, if that was your dream, and you're now 50, you miss the boat. So there's certain things like that. Okay. But there are other things that you could do that maybe would like scratch the same itch if what you're really looking for was more structure, or if you were looking for a rigorous physical routine or something, you can, maybe you become a park ranger instead. I don't know. There's other things you could do to sort of scratch those itches. There's also kind of some limitations might or might not be real. So you could think, for example, I want to act. I've always wanted to be an actress, but now I'm too old because they only take, 20-year-old girls or something. That's not true anymore. I mean, I imagine it's easier if you're a 20-year-old girl, but you know what? Danny Aiello got into acting when he was older. So can you. It is not impossible. It's really a question of talent and commitment because a lot of the folks that became successful actors or whatever began when they were young, but really I think the distinguishing feature they had was the willingness to take that risk, which you can have at any age. So in fact, fear of embarrassment is probably the thing that's holding you back. Like you're afraid that when you show up for an audition or something, they'll be like, you're too old, or that when you found a new company at age whatever you are, that people will say, look, who, here comes Unc still got it. Like you're too old to start a company. That fear of embarrassment, if it's what held you back in your 20s, it could still be what's holding you back in your 50s, and it does not have to.
Well, so I want to get into some of these great ideas. One of the questions was why, where does this myth even come from? Why is it that we think that people are too old? You talked about the actors and that sort of thing. There is that cultural bias towards youth, but why do we feel like we can't try a new thing right now?
First of all, I had to say congratulations to Richard for taking the LSAT. I should tell you from personal experience, it has very little to do with your ultimate success as a lawyer. It is like a logic test, but it definitely determines which schools you can get into.
So reread that too, because Deanna just took the LSAT as well. So Richard and Deanna have now just gone through this.
Well, if there's one thing I've heard from a lot of people, it's that the world needs more lawyers. So you guys are doing God's work. Let's get out there. We could start a club. We'll be like, used to do something else, now a lawyer. And then I'm in the club that's like used to be a lawyer, now do something else, but still a lawyer because Once you can't unsee the stuff that you will see when you when you go to law school. Wrestlers are my favorite example of this. DDP, but also Jericho, Batista, Mae Young, and many others. Like going out and doing something new after you've made a successful, entree into one type of show business. I don't think that's. I don't know if people use that or soap operas or whatever as like their first step into what they think will be a movie career, but I know a lot of people do. Other people do it for a lark because they can, or some people think that where they start will be their career for always. But I think these days that's probably less realistic than it used to be, that any career is actually going to serve you from the beginning of your life to survive, kind of to give you enough money to survive through your entire life, that one thing, because things are changing. So what's your take on that? There's cultural bias in every industry, by the way, in favor of youth, even though people who have more experience have proven over and over again that they can launch more successfully, that they can, integrate into a new career successfully. I've switched careers like several times. I've moved cities several times.
So what's my take on that kind of bias and all that? So first off, I mean, Chloe, I got a chance to talk to Diamond Dallas Page a handful of years ago now, maybe 10, maybe 15. And he was making it big with his DDP yoga and all that. He made a real turn in the road, and really between that and his documentaries and the resurrection of Jake the Snake and all that, there's been some real interesting moves that he made there. It's really funny. I was thinking about this. I was sort of thinking the opposite. I was thinking about, over the summer, I had a chance to talk to this recruiting person, and the recruiting person said, one thing you should know about this time in life as far as you being a coach and all that. And she goes, and there's no like polite official way to say it. She said, but this is a way to get people to realize that you have some coaching wisdom, meaning that my furry white beard is something that not every person who says they're a coach has. I get tagged in a post yesterday by someone, and bless their soul, I'm sure they're wonderful people, who their LinkedIn bio thing said over 3 years experience. And I was like, woo, hold me back. You have 3 years. And I have clothes older than that. So I think that it's an interesting thing where we could turn it, because the reverse, like Chloe said, DDP started wrestling at 35 and then helping people in their 80s do things that people in their 20s can't do. There's no real set fast rules on it, and when I go to your list of questions and all of this, I was thinking about the fact that, you know, are are there times in your experience that you thought, maybe I'm a little too old for this? I mean, again, besides physical things, I guess, what do you think you are too old to do right now?
So for one thing, I think what holds you back from doing the things you think you'd like to try, they're almost the same. Like I was saying, like your fear of failure or embarrassment, or something, or being judged, for some people stays with them their whole life. So whatever thing you thought you wanted to do when you were younger, if you even had the inclination, there, you know, you might still feel like, oh, people are going to look at me and laugh at me if I tell them I want to do this thing. Who cares? First of all, no one's keeping score. And if they're keeping score, they're a jerk and they are very focused on the wrong things. And they probably also were afraid to do the thing they wanted to do. So I guess I would say that. I don't know. So when I was younger, I have an older sister who spent many years getting her degree in nursing. She was in the National Guard, and then she got her um, 2-year degree first. And then she went on to get her 4-year degree. But those last 2 years actually spread into like more like 5 or 6 or 7, because she had kids, she was working a couple of jobs, and all this stuff. And I just thought, well, I'm not going to do that. So I graduated high school a year early and went to college immediately and went to graduate school right away and went to law school right away. I like crammed it all in. So it wasn't so much for me that I thought, well, now I'm too old to switch. I thought, wow, do I have a lot invested in this legal career that I have just started? And I sort of felt stuck that way. It was like I had student loans, I had credentials, I had contacts that would only be helpful if I was in law. So for me, it was other things. It was like the sunk cost fallacy, I would say.
And switching costs, yeah, no, that makes sense to me as well. Richard, points out, I think 3L must be some legal thing that you would know that I don't. He says the oldest summer associate in the history of Portland, Maine. And he goes on to say, but I have to guard against being the old guy scoffing at those kids who were in kindergarten when I was doing X. I mean, it's tricky. You can absolutely, as I just did to that person, have kind of reverse bias and be like, oh, you little kids. But I think it's interesting. I think the experience of rethinking careers, like you said, sunk cost, all the things that we do, the switching costs, the invested time and effort, those are all reasons that hold us back. So how does anyone finally decide to do it? Well, I mean, let's even start with it. What's blowing things up? What are we even talking about today? What is this, Kerry?
Well, 3L is third year law student, which is the final year of law school. Law school in the United States is a 3-year experience, unless you go eat nights or something and stretch it out. So, congratulations, you're most of the way there. You will also have sort of borrowed credibility from the fact that you're older because people will assume that you've been an attorney longer than you have, which is great, actually. But still, I don't know why people whatever. I don't know why people ascribe characteristics to others based on their age or appearance, but it happens all the time. So, yay, 3L, that's amazing. Um, Now you asked a question about why somebody might do it or why they might not.
Well, I asked the question, what does it even really mean? What are we talking about when we talk about blowing things up?
So that's very situational. Okay. So for some people, dipping one toe out of what's expected in their family is a very, very big deal. So maybe everybody in your family has been a doctor and they fully expect you to become a doctor as well. And maybe you did because that was what was expected at the time. And now you're a doctor and you kind of hate it and you really wanted to do something different with your life. So blowing stuff up in that context, it can happen at any point. So if it had happened when you were younger and you were like, I'm not going to medical school, all this would have happened. They would have adjusted their expectations immediately because what choice would they have? But let's say you're down that road. Now blowing stuff up looks a little different. Now you're leaving like an established practice or a position that you've earned at an area hospital or something. You're leaving what some people, a lot of people, consider success, intentionally walking away from it. They're like, you have good money, you're in a prestigious job, you're walking away from it. So you're battling their sort of own self-doubt. Maybe they always wanted to be a doctor and they view it as like a rejection that you're leaving being a doctor. Who knows? People are amazing in their ability to psychologically react to things that shouldn't bother them at all. I don't know. So for you, blowing stuff up is just switching careers. For other people, maybe it's your family's always lived in Texas, so you stayed in Texas, but you really have a longing to live other places. Maybe you want to try Europe. Maybe you want to try an island somewhere. So for some people, that's blowing stuff up. It's switching careers or switching majors while you're still in school. It means a lot of things. Now, listen, if you got kids, you got them. Okay, you can't just like put them up for adoption, please. Um, that's like a whole other thing. But everything else in your life, fully up for grabs, as long as you're brave enough to admit that you want something different. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it can be, I think it does relate to the person, some people, some people are like, wow, I tried something crazy today. I got my hot dog without mustard. It could be a real low bar. But I think if you're thinking blowing things up, I think it's really like you're going to take a 90-degree kind of left turn. I mean, I just left one kind of executive role where I was helping shape leadership and really coach and develop executives all through a team. I'm a CMO right now, acting CMO, and I'm helping a sales team figure themselves out. I'm putting together marketing letters because it's a really small company. So the distance between CMO and any other marketing role is me. So, the blowing things up in this case is just diving right in and just saying, how hard could it be, and trying to figure it out. Not a recommended way to do things, by the way, but I think that there are some people, and I am one of them, who feel like I'll figure it out real fast and we'll get there. Um, I'm also learning coding and learning how much I don't know and learning how absolutely you have to have a very specific kind of brain for coding that I seem to lack. But even the little bits I'm learning are changing how I see things and changing what I look at. Whole reason I go and I take photos all the time is because of the way you see things, the what you focus on. So I think for me, some of my blowing things up is about um, trying to get a different view or a different perspective of the world. And speaking of apps and things like that, by the way, and not that this will blow your mind, but I think it's kind of fun. I made a little app just to see if I could and put a little site up for it called Photo Border. And what it is if you have a little, JPEG or something like that on your phone or something, and you want to put a cute little border around it, you go to photoborder.site, you upload your photo, you make the frame the way you want it, you download it back to your phone. Super easy, nothing to it, just works. But that was my code. I helped make that and I put that together. And when I say help, I had a little AI help. But what I did was I asked it for information along the way. And so what's kind of fun about that to me is that I learned some stuff, and it's super super interesting in that way. Joanne says she doesn't have the coder brain either. Well, would you look at that? There's a photo border right there. So yeah, I think, to me, some of the things you could blow up, they could be huge, like what I just said. It's a complete different job, or they can be. I think I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. What if you blow up the way that you've set up the operating system of you? What if you say, I'm no longer going to let people talk over me. So anytime they talk over me, I'm going to step in. Do you count that as blowing things up, or what do you like? If you like full-fledged change parts of your personality, does that count?
So that's interesting. For one thing, I wouldn't say that's changing your personality. I'd say it's owning who you are because something has prevented you from expressing yourself. Now you're going to express yourself. Other people might well perceive that as blowing stuff up because they have gotten used to talking over you. Nobody will ever thank you for setting a boundary. You're going to have to set it yourself, and then you're going to have to maintain it again and again and again. So in this case, you'll be maintaining that boundary every conversation you have, every meeting you participate in. And yeah, people will be like, whoa, take it easy because they're not used to you asserting yourself. But I don't think that that's necessarily blowing things up. I think people will just like take it that way. I think it's a great thing for one thing. I wonder if people don't make changes like that because they're afraid of how other people will react. I mean, I can't think of any other reason that you wouldn't um, embrace that. I think in large part, what we call fear of failure, even in bigger endeavors, like starting a business, is actually fear of being seen to fail. Like, you know what I mean? Like if nobody was looking, would you care that it had failed? I don't know. What's your take on that?
I think that's a really interesting point. The fact that some of this is like self-imposed. We put the trap around ourselves or the cage around ourselves, and we won't come out of it or whatever. Greg, by the way, says that one has to be willing to become a student again and learn things from scratch, and it might be hard for some. I mean, I think that's an important detail as well. Is that um, well, I mean, it kind of leads into your other segment. Your next segment of notes was saying something about the fact that kind of how do you know when it's time, right? Like how do you know that maybe you should be blowing stuff up? What's your take on that?
You're not happy. I guess. If you're trying to convince yourself that what you're doing every day is enough for you, if you have to tell yourself every day, you know what, it's a paycheck, then you need to change some things because life isn't meant to be lived that way. I'm not saying we don't have responsibilities, we all do, but there maybe is another way you could meet those responsibilities and satisfy the needs of your soul which are legitimate. So if you feel like you want something more, like maybe you are the very best person at processing purchase orders, you're faster than anybody else, you've had this job for a long time, it's easy, you can do it with hardly using 10% of your available brain power, and you've done it for years. You make good money because you get a raise every year, whatever, you've got insurance, people are happy. So if you want to make a change, there's two ways to go about it. One is drastic. You just go quit and leave and have nothing lined up and no plan. I don't recommend it, but like if it's that or you're about to lose your mind, yeah, then you should probably do that. The other way to do it is you could start a side hustle. You could start an Etsy shop if your passion is like candle making. You can make candles on the weekends or whatever and sell them on Etsy and start up a little business and sort of do it in stages, which is definitely what I'd recommend. If your dream is to teach Kung Fu, but right now you're an accountant, then you can teach Kung Fu at night. You can teach Kung Fu on the weekends. You can build up like a student base enough to support you when you're ready to take the leap. And if anything, your business background would be helpful. So how do you know it's time? You know, they always say about change, how the pain of staying where you are um, is worse than your fear of going, I guess. What do you think?
I want to teach Kung Fu. The weird thing is, the first time I tried, this guy in the back was just standing there in a big dentist chair, and he wiggling his arms around and said he knew Kung Fu. So it's been downhill ever since. No, I think when you're ready to change, I liked your point about kind of making side hustles and small things to do it. I think that we often think we have to be very drastic. And I remember, like, when I was doing a lot of teaching on entrepreneurship a while back, 5, 6, 10 years ago, I was saying to people, don't just like jump off and quit your job. Use your job as, do those hours, do that work, and start to figure out the stuff you're doing. They kept mistaking entrepreneurship as wide open. I work for myself. And what I kept saying is, no, entrepreneurship is satisfying a need. You could do that with a day job if you want. You can't, I always say, don't poach on your day job's time. Like, that's not okay. But there's only so many hours. And if you just cut out just a wee bit of Downton Abbey time, you can definitely find some time to put some work together. That's a really dated reference. Aren't those guys done making that show?
Actually, it's a very timely reference because they've only just finished the series by putting out the movie, the final movie in the Downton Abbey series. So you're right on time. But as you yourself have pointed out on multiple occasions, novelty and challenge are important to kind of shaking yourself up and keeping your brain engaged, to keeping you interested in life. And since the show is all about staying engaged with life as you age, doing the same old thing is not going to feel very fulfilling if it's all you do forever. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to like blow everything up, but you can blow stuff up a little bit at a time, maybe just one thing at a time. When we were doing the backpack show and I was doing Punch Out, I had Samantha Stone on, and we talked with her later about the community center she started in Woburn. Before that, I talked with her about her hobbies because she had a different hobby every year. So she goes out and cultivates a completely different hobby every single year. And so this is hobbies now. This is not work. So she's not like disrupting her business. She's not disrupting her career. At that point, she wasn't, just doing something different for a whole year. And it really would sort of fire her up again. Now, since then, she has blown everything up and she changed her career completely and now runs a community center in Woburn, Massachusetts. So she did eventually blow everything up. But along the way, she kept herself fired up with these just hobbies.
I love some of the questions that you threw in here to kind of get people thinking. And one of them I love the most is, if you could blow up one part of your life and rebuild it differently, what would that be? I mean, I think that's a really interesting and exciting question, because I think it's the story of it all. I'm trying to do that thing you do and actually, walk and chew gum here.
Oh, read the notes. So, first of all, I would like to point out that relearning in an academic setting, when you've been doing real life stuff, is probably a little frustrating because it can feel like there's no stakes, except that there are, and the stakes are just future stakes. Like you're learning lessons today that will help you make better decisions and get better results in the future. So it's just kind of like an adjustment, in my experience anyway, when you're trying to learn something new. But if you could blow up one part of your life, and I've blown up my life again and again and again. So I was in marketing and then I went to law school. So I turned down an offer for a job in marketing to go to law school. So like blow up number one. And then I practiced law for like 4 years, 5 years, and then left that to go and teach and go into content. So then I blew that up and then and then moved cities and moved careers again, from teaching into training and from training into content, and then moved cities another time. So I don't know. It's more like, what wouldn't I blow up? I guess if I had to, I eh, I don't know. I guess I would start thinking more strategically about all of that and trying to invest more in myself Instead, I've been switching careers, which builds up somebody else's wealth and builds up somebody else's business. And it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to think about ways that I could have smaller things of my own, whatever those things are, like pursuits and assets and stuff. I mean, I enjoy my career. I'm not complaining about it at all. I'm just saying I might build things around it.
Well, I wonder if anyone who's watching us live wants to answer that question. If you could blow up one part of your life and rebuild it differently, what would that be? The other thing to think about, I was just thinking, sometimes life blows itself up for you. Sometimes something dramatic changes, something, person changes in your life, or your world changes, or you get fired, and there's times where you're like, whoosh, guess I don't have to worry about my career the same way. I think in those moments, you also should be thinking, what would you do? How would you hit the ground running? What matters to you, and how would you change it? So if someone's here live, they can answer that question. The other question that you had, and I love it. So as the other people are trickling in some thoughts, what's your dream next act, no matter your age? Kerry, what's yours?
Oh, my dream next act. Let's see. I have no illusions of like retiring someday. I'm not going to retire. I'm just going to keep working. And the question is what that looks like. So I don't know. I like what I'm doing. I like content a lot. I enjoy it. I could make more content for myself as well as making it for work, I guess. That not like competing content, but you know what I mean? Like make some of my own assets. I could also see traveling, not, I don't like the process of traveling, but I like meeting new people and seeing new places. So that'd be part of my dream next act. I would like to feel comfortable where I am. And at the moment, I do. I mean, I've moved out of one part of the country where I didn't necessarily feel completely aligned with everyone around me back to some place where it feels a little more like home. So I want my next act to also feel like home. But yeah, I mean, literally everything's up for grabs if you find that you're in a place where you're not living your life, really participating and intentionally living your life, you're just sort of riding along. It's time to do some thinking because you go this way once that anybody can prove, and you've just got to do it your way. It should be a life that you choose and create to the extent that you can. And when things happen, like a lot of people getting laid off right now in all different areas of the tech space, that's your chance to think about reinventing yourself. It's hard. It's really hard later in life if you've got responsibilities you're trying to meet. But just consider, making a hard go of it just for a couple more years to do the thing that you've always wanted to do instead of just taking another job that will be just another job for you. I know how hard it sounds, but just think about it even a little bit.
Deanna says, you are who you are when you are. Something could have been simmering all along, and the world prompts it to emerge. And I think that's a very important point for sure. I think, for me, my version of a dream job, I think of this all the time. And I think anyone involved in technology, especially software and stuff like that, I think we all think this at one point, which is I want a job that is physical, practical, finite, and obvious. So I tell people all the time, I would love to run a trash truck company. I would love it. I would love to have like 9 trucks and 24 routes and 16 employees and 600 customers. And I would just, run those little details and try to earn new routes when we lose a few and all that kind of thing. I think it would be just so exciting to have a very finite set of inputs and outputs and run it for a while. That's a fantasy of mine for a duration of time, and then I'd probably lose my mind.
First of all, have you ever spoken to someone who does that job, who has that business, about what it's actually like? It would be interesting to know kind of where the pitfalls are. But yes, I have dreams as well. Everybody does. My secret fantasy job is a librarian, but like a specialty museum, occult library or something where it's like weird texts that are old and have that smell that old books have. I love old books. So that's my like secret fantasy job, I guess. I could do that. I could do that and do what I'm doing now. I think I would need like a library science degree at minimum. Might be the only thing I don't have, but that's enough to keep me from doing it right now.
I don't know. That's a good point because I was a bookseller and I sure didn't need a degree. I just was like, I like this book. I think the library science degree just teaches you like search technology, which is now like so robust, maybe you don't need it anymore. That's another whole question to ask. Do we even need the credentials to do that job unless you're going to work for someone? Like if you come and run your own library, then you could be whoever you want to be. I don't know. I want to get out of here, but I've been doing a habit of like closing the show before you even get a last word. So today it's your last word.
I was really hoping somebody else would have a last word, somebody out there, because I bet that there's someone out there who's got an idea kind of rattling around, a little hope, a little spark inside of you for something that you would love to do, but you're a little bit scared. So if we could encourage them to go ahead and do it or to try it or suggest some small way in which they might start that process, I mean, I would love to hear what you guys think before we close out. But even if we close this out, Chris@chrisbrogan.com, Kerry@chrisbrogan.com. If you want a little encouragement, we will give you that encouragement because the world needs people. What do they say? The world needs people who have come alive. That's what the world needs. So do what makes you come alive.
I've never heard that statement. I always thought that the world needs love, sweet love, or something like that. Isn't that the song?